In the heat of a Virginia summer, beneath the quiet towns that line the James River, there lies a secret no history book dares to mention. Behind the doors of an abandoned church, the air hangs heavy with dust and shadow, whispering stories of lives erased. The townsfolk speak of Nat Turner as a man of rebellion, but they do not speak of what happened afterward, of the nights when the church's bells tolled alone, echoing over fields where bodies disappeared without a trace. Records vanish, burned by those who feared the consequences of truth. And yet, if one listens closely, the wood groans with memory, as if the building itself remembers. Something ancient lingers in the corners, watching, waiting. The church is not merely a place of worship. It is a vault of secrets, a repository for sins that no confessor would dare utter. Every pew, every altar, every carved cross bears the weight of suppressed terror. And in that oppressive silence, the faint scent of smoke and iron hints at rituals conducted in the dead of night, unseen by the living, yet felt by those who lingered too long. Here, the story of Nat Turner continues, not in history books, but in shadow, in whispers, and in the restless echoes of those who never returned. The church's basement was never meant for worship. Thick stone walls sealed away a different kind of congregation. Orphaned children taken from their families under the guise of protection. They were slaves? Yes, but not all had been bought or sold. Some had simply vanished from plantations where their screams were silenced by fear. Inside the basement, chains rusted, and remnants of tiny shoes lay in corners, as if abandoned mid-step. No record exists of these children, yet testimony survives in hidden diaries, pages smudged with tears and soot. They spoke of shadowy figures in robes, chanting passages that twisted prayers into incantations. One child, barely 8, scratched warnings into the walls. They do not pray. They do not see God. And as the summer sun pierced the cracks of the boarded windows, the shadows inside shifted independently of the light, twisting into shapes no human hand could create. The air smelled of decay and old incense. Footsteps echoed where none walked. The children were never seen again, but sometimes at night, travelers report whispers, laughter, and faint singing in the ruins, an eternal chorus trapped between salvation and horror. History records Nat Turner as a man who led a rebellion in 1831, only to be captured and executed. But some accounts, suppressed and fragmented, tell of a second awakening, a return not in body, but in spirit. It is said he appeared in the town at night, a silhouette in candlelight, warning of horrors to come. Those who saw him claimed his eyes were hollow yet burning with a fire no earthly cruelty could extinguish. He walked the streets of Virginia like a shadow of vengeance, drawn to the hidden church. Something had been done to the children there, something unforgivable, and Turner, alive or not, became witness and judge. The air thickened in his presence, carrying the scent of blood and ash, and doors slammed without wind. The townspeople whispered that Turner's spirit would not rest until every secret was unearthed, every sin exposed. And the church's walls, carved with crosses and symbols of piety, quivered in his gaze, as if recoiling from truths they had long tried to suppress. No one ran the church openly. Behind closed doors, a council of clergy governed, their faces hidden in shadows. They decided who lived and who disappeared. Their authority was absolute, their morality twisted by power and fear. The council conducted rites that mimicked prayer but carried the weight of oppression, a manipulation of faith into terror. Diaries recovered from burned archives hint at ritualistic gatherings where children were marched into the basement, never to return. Those few who survived told of chants that echoed like chains dragging across stone. The council claimed divine justification, but their hands bore the grime of guilt. One account describes a bishop who wept not for the children, but for the loss of secrecy, fearing the exposure of rituals that predated even the founding of the plantation. These men were not monsters by simple cruelty. They were architects of a moral labyrinth, bending God's image into an instrument of control. The church itself was a witness. Its stone walls absorbed the horrors enacted within. People who ventured inside reported whispers, unintelligible yet filled with urgency, as if the building attempted to relay messages to the living. Scratches and marks on the walls suggested children had tried to communicate, perhaps even summon help from beyond. Some swear that during thunderstorms, the whispers grow louder, transforming into cries that mimic the wind outside. Archaeologists who attempted to study the site found notes of madness in their journals, the ink smearing into unreadable chaos, as though the building resisted interpretation. The basement floor was uneven, concealing hidden compartments where relics, chains, and faded garments lay undisturbed for decades. Every creak of the floorboards, every shift in air temperature, seemed purposeful, a warning to intruders. Some knowledge was never meant for human comprehension. Hidden beneath the altar, a trapdoor led to a smaller chamber. Within, meticulously kept records chronicled each child, each disappearance, and each ritual. Names, dates, and brief notes documented horrors with clinical precision. The ink had long since faded, but stains hinted at blood, tears, or both. Historians who stumbled upon copies of these pages describe an overwhelming sense of guilt and terror, as if the very act of reading condemned them. Scholars noted patterns, the same symbols etched repeatedly, the same prayers twisted into warnings. Whoever had kept these records understood that documentation was both confession and curse. The church had preserved memory while simultaneously attempting to erase it from public knowledge, a paradox of power and secrecy. Rumors spread through Virginia of a series of unexplainable events. Livestock found mutilated near the old church, shadowy figures moving through cornfields, children hearing voices calling them from abandoned roads. Turner's rebellion, though decades passed, seemed to manifest again, not in physical revolt, but in psychological hauntings. Those who resisted investigation reported nightmares so vivid that they could not distinguish between sleep and waking. Dreams of screaming children, chanting clergy, and Turner's ghostly silhouette haunted their every movement. The town's memory of Nat Turner became intertwined with the hidden church, and a palpable fear settled over the area, one that no sermon could exorcise. A single child survived the basement, hidden in a loose stone cavity for weeks. His voice carried the echoes of despair, whispering of ritual and cruelty beyond comprehension. He spoke of faces behind masks, of whispers that twisted prayers into commands, of the chains that sang when no one was near. In his nightmares, the church itself moved, shifting halls and staircases as if it had a mind of its own. Sleep offered no relief. The boundary between the living and the dead blurred. His testimony, dismissed at the time, survived only in fragmented letters hidden beneath floorboards. Each word bore the weight of trauma too immense for comprehension, yet contained clues, symbols, dates, and names, suggesting the horrors were not random but orchestrated. Decades later, explorers of the abandoned church claimed that shadows moved independently of light. They reported seeing figures kneeling at empty pews, bowed in silent prayer. The shadows were too detailed to be imagination. Children, adults, Turner himself, the council. No explanation satisfied reason. Cameras captured anomalies, blurred shapes that defied logic, whispering that something in the church had refused to die, refusing to forgive, refusing to be forgotten. Locals spoke of hearing sermons in the dead of night, long after the church had been closed. Those who tried to leave the property often found themselves inexplicably circling the church, drawn back as if by an unseen hand, a magnetic tether of guilt and fear. Inside the hidden basement, tattered sermons remained, twisted prayers written in a script that merged Latin, English, and unfamiliar symbols. They were not for the living, but for something else, some dark presence that the council sought to appease. Each page seemed to hum with energy, a vibration felt in the bones of anyone who held them. Researchers report nausea, vertigo, even hallucinations when attempting to decipher the text. The sermons detailed Turner's return, an event the clergy anticipated as both punishment and ritual. Every word was layered with threat and prophecy, the past bleeding into the present, the living and dead interwoven in a cycle no one could escape. The altar itself bore stains no cleaning could remove. Analysis suggested not just one, but dozens of events, over decades, perhaps even centuries. The stains told a story of sacrifices, some symbolic, others horrifyingly real. Witnesses who dared enter the room reported visions of children, bound and silent, reaching for salvation that would never come. One historian recounted feeling hands grasping his own from beneath the altar, though nothing was there. Panic and despair struck even the most skeptical. Something ancient had been awakened by the council's rituals, something that lingered in the stone, hung in the air, and whispered to those unprepared to hear. Those who studied the church long after the rebellion spoke of Turner's spirit as if it were both protector and avenger. He was drawn to the basement not as a man, but as memory and wrath incarnate. Shadows twisted into his silhouette, whispers carried his warnings, and the air grew thick with the scent of iron and ash. He was not alone. Every child who had vanished became part of him, their pain feeding his presence. Locals swear that the night Turner returned, the church doors flew open and closed on their own, as if breathing. The land itself remembered, refusing to release its victims to time or memory. The clergy's secrecy was driven by fear of exposure, but fear is never absolute. Those who remained in power twisted faith into a tool for terror. Letters discovered decades later revealed plans for a final ritual, designed to merge the living and dead into obedience. Every child, every record, every sermon was a step toward control. The council believed they were chosen, blessed, and protected, but in truth, they had awakened something they could not master. Histories erased them from public knowledge, but in the shadows, their legacy remained, a cautionary tale encoded in whispers, blood, and stone. Beneath the basement was another layer, a crypt forgotten by time. Walls lined with urns, each containing the remains of children, their ashes interlaced with salt and herbs. Symbols etched into the stone suggested an attempt to bind spirits, yet the cries of the lost seemed to seep through the cracks. Visitors reported hearing names spoken aloud, soft but insistent, calling them by name. The crypt was a threshold, a place where the past bled into the present, and Turner's shadow prowled among the urns, ensuring the wrongdoers would never be free. As night fell, the church's silhouette against the Virginia sky became a landmark of terror. Shadows stretched impossibly long, and the wind carried screams that were neither human nor wind. Those who dared approach after dark often found themselves lost in time, wandering halls that shifted, seeing visions of the council and the vanished children. Even the land surrounding the church seemed hostile. Trees bent unnaturally, streams whispered warnings, and the moonlight revealed figures crouching in the underbrush. It was not just a place of death, but a living memory of cruelty, punishment, and unresolved anger. Few dared speak of what they saw. One elderly woman recalled watching from her window as Turner's figure glided across the field, carrying the bodies of the lost children in spectral arms. Another man described hearing the faint sound of a choir, children singing hymns of despair beneath the floorboards. These witnesses were dismissed as mad, yet their accounts all shared the same chilling detail. The church was alive, aware, and unwilling to release its secrets. Turner was present in every whispered warning, in every shadow, in every heartbeat echoing through the stone. Despite fear, a handful attempted to resist the council's plans. Diaries show hidden passages, secret messages, and acts of defiance, but each attempt failed, often violently. The children vanished, the resistors disappeared, and the council tightened their grip. Yet Turner's spirit, relentless, grew stronger, merging with the echoes of those lost. Resistance was futile in life, but in memory, rebellion lived. Each stone in the basement became a testament to courage crushed and to the darkness that feeds on silence. The building itself became a vessel. Footsteps, whispers, and shadows multiplied. The walls expanded and contracted as if breathing. Investigators and trespassers alike reported overwhelming fear, nausea, and hallucinations. The church was no longer just a structure. It was a mind, and the council had long departed, leaving Turner and the lost children to roam the halls. Doors slammed shut with invisible force, windows rattled without wind, and chains dragged across the stone floor in patterns too deliberate to be coincidence. Turner's presence had merged with the building, ensuring the world would never forget or understand. Centuries later, the site remains abandoned, but fear clings to it like moss. Locals avoid it, travelers report disorientation, and birds never nest on its steeple. The church's secrets persist, waiting for someone brave or foolish enough to enter. History may not record these events, but they linger in the land, in whispers, in shadows. Turner's second rebellion was never about armies. It was about memory, punishment, and the impossibility of erasure. Those who disturbed the balance paid with their sanity, their lives, or their disappearance, leaving only echoes behind. The church waits. Beneath its altar, in the basement, in the crypt of lost children, the liturgy continues. Turner walks among the shadows. The council remains absent, and the children's whispers rise in endless chorus. Every visitor senses it. Every historian feels it. Some truths are too heavy for the living, some crimes too vast for justice. Yet the story persists, eternal and unyielding. And in that persistence lies the terror, the knowledge that the past is never dead, that it cannot be buried, and that some houses of God are merely houses of horror. The forgotten files have not been closed. They never will be.